today's video we're going to talk about the future of the Leica M Rangefinder system. Now this camera has been around for 100 years, it's the flagship camera for Leica, and it's the camera that I've been shooting with for over 20 years. Now this isn't an actual fact-based conversation, this is more speculation, and I just wanted to start a conversation about where Leica might be going with this. Now we know that the Leica M Rangefinder is rumored to be released soon as an EVF, and there's speculation about those statistics and what that camera might look like. I've also heard gossip about they're going to abandon the actual optic rangefinder altogether, which I don't think is going to happen. There's also some pushback about Leica going in this direction if they do actually release an EVF style rangefinder camera. I think it's a good thing. It doesn't threaten me. I think it actually opens up some opportunities for people that might have eyesight or other impairments that make it very difficult to use the M optical rangefinder, which is why the VisiFlex has been so popular. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Scott. I'm a photographer from Santa Cruz, California. I've been a professional photographer on and off for about 25 years now. Alright, so let's get to the three things I'd love to see Leica work on. Number one, first and foremost for me, is the weather sealing. Now the M is already a really robust camera. You can put this camera through its paces. It is built like a tank, but it isn't IPSC rated, right? So the camera doesn't have a rating for water and dust. If they could somehow build in a weather sealing for dust and for water, I would love that, because I could work and push that much harder in those adverse environments, especially when I'm doing travel, adventure photography, or working in those difficult conditions. I just would worry a little bit less about my gear, and I think that would really, truly add value for me and add value to the brand, in the sense that they're still continuing to try to push things. So in some kind of like next release of versions of lenses or whatnot, as long as it doesn't make the lenses any bigger, please, if anyone's listening, I would love to see a true actually weather rating on these lenses. I need to get this off my chest first. If you've watched any of my videos before, I really firmly believe that all the work in your photography, your creativity, and the stuff you're doing, the work starts in the head and the heart, right? So I did that reversed. The work starts in the head and the heart. That's where the work is. I can't remember, it might have been Helmut Newton, but there was some interview of him talking about, there's this camera, and this thing already does everything for you. All you do is point it in the direction and it makes the photograph. So what is the photographer? And that's the point I wanted to get into, is that the tech and the gear, it's great, it's fun to get into some of the fun tools and toys that we get to use to be creatives, but it doesn't create the artist, it doesn't create the photographer, and it certainly doesn't make you a better photographer. So when I talk about these things, I just wanted to preface that and contextualize this, that I'm not necessarily going to just geek out on stuff that I think is going to make me a better photographer. So my opinion about where I'd love to see Leica going with this is more from a standpoint of someone that's been using the Leica M I've been using the M camera for over 20 years. Okay, item number two I'd love to see in the future for Leica lenses, and how lenses communicate with the camera body. We've got the 6-bit coding that's been around for quite a long time now, but what we don't have is a readout on the aperture. If you're not familiar with how the Leica M system works, there's a 6-bit coding on the back of the lens, and it lets you know what lens is actually on the camera, and the camera does have some adjustments that deal with distortion and vignetting. That's all you get. That's all the camera reads. I don't get an aperture readout. Yes, you get aperture readouts on the metadata, like in the file, you can see what aperture the camera thinks it was, but that's only achieved because the camera knows your ISO setting and it knows your shutter speed, and what it has is a light sensor on the top of the rangefinder. If you're ever wondering what that little dot was, let me see if I can point to it here, make sure I've got it. This little buddy right here, just right by your shutter speed dial, is a light sensor. So what the sensor does is it takes like an ambient light reading, and then using that data against the settings that it does have, it creates an estimate for what the aperture was for you to achieve that exposure settings. On some of my lenses, the Aperture ring is pretty soft. It has the detents, they're still firm and clicky, but if I'm moving quickly or moving around, I might inadvertently adjust it. It's like, say, from 1.4 to f2, or somewhere in between that. There's a slight adjustment. And I shoot manual sometimes in tricky scenes. I set up my exposure values where it's needed, and then off I go. If there's one setting that I can accidentally adjust, it's going to be the aperture ring. And I just love to know if I'm looking through my files, did I actually inadvertently move the aperture? Well, the only way I can know that with certainty is if it actually gave a readout to the file. And to do that, they would need to change or update how the lens communicates with the camera body. I would love to see that in the future. I think that could be an interesting improvement on what I think, as I said, is already an amazing, almost perfect camera system. Okay, item number 3, I'm bringing this one up. This is not for me, this is actually for everyone else. I see a lot of Leica community talking about wanting IBIS. IBIS is in-body image stabilization, so you get that in a lot of modern mirrorless and SLR cameras. The Hasselblad X2D and X2D2 has some remarkable IBIS, which I've worked with. It is kind of nice. These cameras are great for street photography, working in the field. I've never needed IBIS in this camera, and I don't need Leica to do this. I'm bringing IBIS up because, again, it's been a wish list for a lot of people in the community. I see it in chats and conversations, and it doesn't move the needle for me. It would be really cool, but I'll say this. So if IBIS were something that were to come into these cameras, which it might, and I hope it does for the people that really want it, again, I don't need it. I could care less. What I do care about is Leica staying the course. That's what I love about the brand, and why I've been so loyal to the brand, is they're just so good at what they do, and they really get it done right, and they're not in a rush to make those changes. So they're not like Sony cranking out some new camera version every single year, abandoning their customer base, having the old camera the year before and needing to buy the next one. It's not like that. They do firmware updates still on cameras that have been discontinued. I love that they put so much work into continuing to perfect the cameras that they made. If it does come, it can't come at the cost of a thicker camera body. They finally got the M10 to be the size and girth of the M7, M6, the film camera bodies. They finally started to feel better. Remember the M8 and I think the M9s too, I can't recall now. They were just kind of a little bit bulky, they're a little bit thicker, and I just didn't love the feel. It was a really rough transition for me going from the M7 to the M8 once it did. It made sense because I spent more than the cost of an M8 body on film and developing when I had the M7. So it was like a natural just transition. Alright, that's it. I just wanted to go over just a quick speculation of where I see the Leica M system going in the future, in addition to that EVF that's likely coming out. So I'm curious what you're thinking. Like, are you interested in any of those 3 things I just mentioned? Like, and what's the one thing you would love to see Leica do on the M system? If it's the IBIS, hey, I don't blame you. A lot of people have been talking about that as their wish list. Again, for me, the first 2 points, if they did weather sealing, and then I could just get that aperture readout to know if I just slipped and hit the ring, it's my fault kind of thing, or did the light actually change? I just would be really cool to have the confidence in the accurate readout for the aperture. All right, that's it for now. Until next time, stay curious, keep clicking.